Before we start, please hit that like button and subscribe. This story needs to be heard, and I need you all to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, a super thanks would mean the world to me right now. The oncologist's words were still ringing in my ears when Margaret asked me for a divorce. 24 hours. That's how long my wife of 40 years waited after I received my stage 3 colon cancer diagnosis before she told me she wanted out. I remember the exact moment. I was sitting at our kitchen table, the morning light coming through the windows I'd installed myself 30 years ago, staring at the pamphlets about chemotherapy and radiation. My hands were shaking. I hadn't slept. Margaret walked in, poured herself coffee, and said 6 words that changed everything. "Thomas, I want a divorce." Just like that. Casual. Like she was commenting on the weather. I looked up at her. This woman I'd known since we were both 23 years old. This woman I'd built a life with. This woman who'd stood beside me through law school, through the lean years when I was a public defender, making next to nothing, through the long nights when I was making partner at the firm. This woman who'd raised our 3 children with me. This woman who'd celebrated my retirement just 8 months earlier. Her face was blank. Not sad, not apologetic, just blank. "What?" I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "I want a divorce," she repeated. "I've already spoken to an attorney. You'll be receiving papers within the week." That's when I knew. The way she said it, the way she'd already done it, she'd been planning this. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I got to this moment, sitting in my kitchen with cancer eating away at my insides while my wife of 4 decades calmly destroyed my life. Because the real story isn't just about what she did. It's about what I did next. And trust me, you'll want to hear every single detail. My name is Thomas Crawford. I'm 68 years old, and until 9 months ago, I was a partner at Henderson, Marshall & Associates, one of the most respected law firms in the state. I specialized in family law. Ironic, isn't it? I spent 43 years helping people navigate the worst moments of their lives. Divorces, custody battles, asset divisions, prenuptial agreements. I'd seen it all. I'd heard every excuse, every lie, every manipulation tactic. I thought I knew everything there was to know about how marriages fall apart. I was wrong. Margaret and I met in the summer of 1979. I was fresh out of my undergraduate degree, working as a paralegal to save money for law school. She was a secretary at the same firm. We were both young, ambitious, full of dreams. She had the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. On our 3rd date, we went to a jazz club downtown, and she leaned over during a saxophone solo and whispered that she thought she could love me. We were married 10 months later, on June 14th, 1980. Small ceremony. Her parents, my parents, a handful of friends. We honeymooned in Niagara Falls because that's all we could afford. Those early years were hard. I was in law school, studying until 2 or 3 in the morning most nights. Margaret worked full-time to support us. She never complained, not once. When I graduated and took that public defender job, making only $18,000 a year, she just smiled and said we'd make it work. And we did. We lived in a tiny apartment, drove a beat-up Honda Civic with 140,000 miles on it, ate a lot of pasta and rice. But we were happy. At least, I thought we were. Our first child, Jennifer, was born in 1984. Margaret quit her job to stay home, and money got even tighter. I took on extra work, did document review on weekends, anything to make ends meet. Margaret stretched every dollar. She clipped coupons, shopped at thrift stores, made our daughter's clothes on her mother's old sewing machine. When Michael came along 2 years later, in 1986, I thought Margaret might break under the pressure. But she didn't. She was strong, capable. She managed our household like a military operation while I worked 70, 80 hours a week trying to build a career. In 1990, I made the jump to private practice. A small firm specializing in family law took me on as an associate. The salary was better, $45,000 a year, but the hours were worse. I was gone constantly. Early mornings, late nights, weekends in the office. Margaret handled everything at home. Doctor's appointments, parent-teacher conferences, soccer games, dance recitals. I missed so much of my children's lives, but I told myself it was necessary. I was building our future, building security. Our third child, Rebecca, was born in 1992, another beautiful daughter. By then we'd moved to a better house in a better neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, small yard, safe streets, not fancy but solid. Middle class, respectable. Margaret seemed content. She had her book club, her garden club, her volunteer work at the children's schools. We had couple friends, dinner parties, weekend barbecues. Normal life. I made partner in 1997. It was everything I'd worked for. The salary jumped to $120,000 a year, plus bonuses, real money, finally. Margaret and I celebrated with a weekend trip to wine country. I remember sitting at a restaurant overlooking the vineyards, holding her hand across the table, telling her that all the sacrifice had been worth it, that everything I'd done had been for her, for us, for our family. She smiled and squeezed my hand and said she was proud of me. I believed her. The years rolled by. The kids grew up. Jennifer went to college, then medical school. Michael got his engineering degree. Rebecca studied architecture. I was so proud of all of them. So was Margaret. We'd done well. We'd raised good kids, smart kids, successful kids, and it had cost us everything we had. Student loans for all 3. We paid them off, every cent. We'd taken out a second mortgage on the house, depleted our savings, cashed out investments. But I didn't care. My children would start their adult lives debt-free. That mattered to me. By 2010, all 3 kids were launched. Jennifer was in her residency in Seattle. Michael was working for a tech company in Austin. Rebecca had joined an architectural firm in Denver. They were scattered across the country, but they were thriving. Margaret and I were alone in the house for the first time in 30 years. I thought it would bring us closer. I thought we'd reconnect, travel, enjoy each other's company without the constant demands of parenthood. I cut back my hours a little, started coming home for dinner more often, suggested we take trips, Paris, Rome, Hawaii. Margaret always had reasons why we couldn't. The timing wasn't right. It was too expensive. She wasn't feeling well. She wanted to wait. So we waited. I kept working. The firm was doing well. I was senior partner by then, bringing in major clients, handling complex cases. My income had grown to $280,000 a year. We paid off the house in 2014. No more mortgage, no more debt. Just savings growing in our accounts, retirement funds building, financial security finally achieved after decades of struggle. In 2022, I started thinking about retirement. I was 65. I'd been practicing law for 43 years. I was tired. The work that had once energized me had become draining. Long days in court, difficult clients, endless paperwork. I wanted to rest. I wanted to spend time with Margaret. I wanted to travel to all those places we'd never gotten to visit. I wanted to be present for my grandchildren. Jennifer had 2 kids by then. Michael had 1. Rebecca had just had her first. Margaret seemed supportive when I mentioned retiring. She said it sounded wonderful. She said she was looking forward to having me home. She said we could finally do all the things we'd talked about doing. I announced my retirement at the firm in August of 2023. They threw me a party, big event, lots of speeches, a generous retirement gift. My final day was December 31st, 2023. I walked out of that office for the last time feeling lighter than I had in years. My retirement package was excellent. My 401k and other investments totaled just over $1.8 million. Our house was worth approximately $550,000, completely paid off. We had savings, we had Social Security, we'd be comfortable, more than comfortable. I came home that day, champagne in hand, ready to celebrate with my wife, ready to start the next chapter of our lives together. Margaret seemed pleased. We toasted. We made plans. She suggested we wait until spring to start traveling. Winter wasn't a good time, she said. I agreed. We had all the time in the world now, or so I thought. January and February of 2024 passed quietly. I adjusted to retirement. I slept in. I read books I'd been meaning to read for years. I took up woodworking in the garage. I learned to cook. Margaret had always handled that, but I enjoyed it. I felt relaxed, happy. I'd look at Margaret sometimes and think about how lucky I was. 44 years together, 3 wonderful children, financial security, health, a comfortable home. What more could a person want? In March, I started noticing symptoms. Nothing dramatic at first, just some discomfort, changes in my digestion. I ignored it for a few weeks, but Margaret noticed I wasn't eating as much. She encouraged me to see a doctor. I made an appointment for late April. The doctor ordered tests, colonoscopy, CT scan, blood work. I wasn't worried. Probably something minor. Stress from the lifestyle change maybe. Aging, nothing serious. The results came back on May 7th, 2024. I'll never forget that date. I was sitting in Dr. Morrison's office, Margaret beside me. He had that look on his face that doctors get when they're about to deliver bad news. Sympathetic, but professional. "I'm afraid we found something concerning," he said. "Stage 3 colorectal cancer. Advanced, aggressive. It had spread to some lymph nodes. We needed to move quickly. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, the whole arsenal." He couldn't give me exact odds, but with treatment, the 5-year survival rate was around 64%. 64%, roughly 2 in 3 chance of surviving 5 more years. I felt Margaret's hand on mine. I turned to look at her. She seemed shocked, concerned. She squeezed my hand tight. "We'll get through this," she said. I believed her. Dr. Morrison outlined the treatment plan. We'd schedule surgery within 2 weeks to remove the tumor and affected tissue. After I recovered from surgery, we'd start chemotherapy. 6 months of treatment, maybe radiation as well, depending on how things progressed. It would be difficult. The side effects would be challenging. But it was the best chance. We left the office in a daze. The drive home was silent. I kept thinking about all the plans we'd made, all the dreams we'd had for retirement, travel, time with grandchildren, peace. Now everything was uncertain. That night, Margaret was quiet. She made dinner, chicken and vegetables, but barely ate. I tried to comfort her, told her that the treatment had good success rates, that I was strong, that we'd beat this together. She nodded but didn't say much. She went to bed early. I stayed up late, researching my diagnosis online, reading survivor stories, trying to find hope in the statistics. The next morning was May 8th, 2024. Wednesday. I remember because it was garbage day and I'd wheeled the bins to the curb before sunrise, moving slowly because my abdomen was aching. I came back inside. Margaret was up, already dressed. She was making coffee. The morning light was soft through the kitchen windows. I sat down at the table with all the pamphlets and paperwork from Dr. Morrison's office spread out in front of me. Treatment schedules, insurance forms, lists of side effects, dietary recommendations for chemo patients. I was trying to organize it all, make sense of it, create a plan. That's when Margaret walked over with her coffee and said it. "Thomas, I want a divorce." I stared at her. The words didn't make sense. It was like she'd spoken in a foreign language. "What?" I said. She repeated herself, calm, steady, like she was telling me she'd picked up milk at the store. "I want a divorce. I've already spoken to an attorney. You'll be receiving papers within the week." My brain couldn't process it. 24 hours ago, we'd been sitting in Dr. Morrison's office together. She'd held my hand. She'd said we'd get through it together. "I don't understand," I said. My voice sounded hollow, distant. "I think you do," Margaret said. She sat down across from me, wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "I've been unhappy for a long time, Thomas. Years. I stayed for the kids. Then I stayed because you were still working and I didn't want to disrupt things. But now the kids are grown and you're retired. There's no reason to keep pretending." Pretending. That word hit me like a physical blow. "Pretending?" I repeated. "We've been married for 44 years. 43, she corrected. "And most of those years, you were barely home. You were at the office. You missed everything, every milestone, every important moment. You were there physically sometimes, but you were never really present." "I was providing for our family," I said. My hands were shaking. "Everything I did was for you, for the kids, to build a life." "You built a career," Margaret said. "That's not the same thing as building a life together." I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, too bright. Everything was spinning. "You're leaving me because I work too much?" I said. "You're leaving me the day after I find out I have cancer?" Something flickered across her face then. Not quite guilt, but something close to it. She looked away. "The timing is unfortunate," she said, "but I can't keep living a lie. I can't keep being unhappy just because you're sick. That's not fair to me." Fair to her. Fair to her. "I have cancer," I said. My voice was rising now. "I'm facing surgery, 6 months of chemotherapy. I might die. And you're worried about what's fair to you?" "You'll be fine," Margaret said dismissively. "You're strong. You'll beat it. But whether you do or don't, I need to live my own life. I've spent 43 years taking care of everyone else. Your career, the kids, this house, everything revolved around you and what you needed. Now it's my turn." I stood up. My legs felt weak. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Get out," I said. Margaret didn't move. "This is my house too." "Get out," I repeated, louder this time. "Get out of this room. Get away from me." She stood slowly, picked up her coffee and walked out. No hurry, no emotion, just left. I sank back into the chair. My chest was tight. I couldn't get enough air. Was I having a heart attack? Was that even possible? To have a heart attack from emotional shock while you were also dealing with cancer? I sat there for a long time. Minutes, hours. I don't know. The pamphlets in front of me blurred. The words ran together. Chemotherapy, radiation, survival rates, divorce. My phone rang. Jennifer, my oldest daughter. I answered. "Dad?" Her voice was cheerful. "I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Mom texted that the doctor's appointment didn't go great." "It's cancer," I said. My voice sounded flat, dead. "Stage 3 colon cancer." Silence on the other end, then, "Oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. What's the treatment plan?" I explained. "Surgery, chemo, the timeline, the prognosis." Jennifer listened, asked questions. She's a doctor herself, a pediatric oncologist. She understood the medical details better than I did. She started talking about treatment centers, second opinions, clinical trials. "You're going to beat this," she said firmly. "You're strong, and you have all of us. Mom will be there with you through everything." I almost told her then, almost said that Mom wouldn't be there, because Mom was divorcing me. But I couldn't. I couldn't say the words out loud yet. "Yeah," I said instead. "Listen, I need to go. I'll call you later." "I love you, Dad." "Love you too, sweetheart." The next 5 days were surreal. Margaret and I existed in the same house, like ghosts passing through walls. We didn't speak. We barely looked at each other. She slept in the guest room. I stayed in our bedroom, my bedroom now, I supposed. On the afternoon of May 13th, a courier arrived with papers, divorce papers. Margaret wasn't home. She'd been going out a lot, though I didn't know where. I signed for the envelope, closed the door, stood in the entryway holding it. This was real. This was happening. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Petition for dissolution of marriage, filed by Margaret Ellen Crawford against Thomas James Crawford. I scanned the documents with a lawyer's eye, even though my heart was pounding and my vision kept blurring. She was asking for half of everything, half the retirement funds, half the value of the house, spousal support of $4,000 per month for 10 years. Her attorney had valued our assets at approximately $2.3 million total. She wanted $1.15 million plus ongoing support, $48,000 a year for 10 years. That was another $480,000 on top of the asset split. I did the math in my head. If she got what she was asking for, she'd walk away with approximately $1.63 million total. I'd be left with about $670,000. And I was the one who'd earned every penny of it. The papers claimed irreconcilable differences, no mention of my cancer diagnosis, no mention of her timing, just bland legal language about the marriage being irretrievably broken. There was a list of proposed division of assets, detailed, specific, down to furniture and artwork and kitchen appliances. She wanted the dining room set we'd bought in 2008 for $3,500. She wanted the bedroom furniture. She wanted half the china, half the silver, half the linens. I noticed something then, the level of detail, the specificity. This wasn't thrown together in a few days. This had been planned. Carefully. Thoroughly. I went to my home office and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Started making notes. Because here's the thing about being a family law attorney for 4 decades. You develop instincts. You learn to spot lies. You learn to see patterns. And something about these papers felt off. The asset valuation was wrong. Not dramatically, but wrong. She'd overvalued certain things, undervalued others. The retirement accounts were listed at $1.75 million. I knew for a fact they were worth $1.81 million as of the last statement. Not a huge difference, $60,000, but significant. Why would her attorney get that wrong? Unless Margaret had provided incorrect information. Unless she'd been documenting our assets herself, separate from our actual financial records, which would mean she'd been planning this for more than a few days. I went to our filing cabinet. Margaret handled most of our day-to-day financial management, paying bills, balancing accounts, filing paperwork. I'd been too busy with work, and then later I'd just let her keep doing it because it was routine. I trusted her. I started pulling files, bank statements, investment statements, credit card bills. I laid them out on the desk in chronological order and started going through them. Most recent month first, April 2024. Everything looked normal. March, normal. February, normal. January, normal. I kept going back, December, November, October, September, all the way back to the beginning of the year, then into 2023. But as I went further back, something started nagging at me. Small things. Charges on our credit card I didn't recognize. $140 to a restaurant I'd never heard of in March of 2023. $250 to a spa in May. Regular charges to a gym membership starting in June. Margaret had never mentioned joining a gym. I grabbed a highlighter and started marking unusual expenses. By the time I was done, I had dozens of highlighted charges. They started in January of 2023. 16 months ago, restaurants, hotels, day rates I noticed, not overnight stays, spa treatments, clothing stores I knew Margaret didn't usually shop at. A jewelry purchase for $895 in August that I'd never seen her wear. Then I noticed something else. Cash withdrawals from our joint checking account. Nothing huge, $200 here, $300 there, but frequent, every week or two. I added them up. Over the course of 2023, Margaret had withdrawn nearly $14,000 in cash. What had she needed cash for? I sat back in my chair. My stomach hurt. The cancer, probably. Or maybe just the stress. Or maybe the growing realization that my wife of 43 years had been planning this for a very long time. I needed help. I called David Chen. David and I had worked together for years. He joined the firm in 2005 as a young associate, and I'd mentored him. He specialized in complex asset division cases, smart, thorough, aggressive when needed. "Thomas," David said when he answered, "good to hear from you. How's retirement treating you?" "Not great," I said. "I need your help, professional help." "Of course. What's going on?" I told him. "The cancer diagnosis." The divorce papers served 5 days later. He was silent for a moment. "Jesus, Thomas," he finally said. "I'm so sorry about the diagnosis, about Margaret. I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll represent me." "Absolutely, without question. Can you come to the office tomorrow?" "I'll be there at 9. "And Thomas? Don't do anything in the meantime. Don't move money. Don't make any major decisions. Don't talk to Margaret about the case. Let me handle everything." "Understood." I met with David the next morning. I told him the whole story. Then I told him about what I'd found going through the financial records, the unusual charges, the cash withdrawals, the level of detail in the asset division that suggested long-term planning. David made notes while I talked. When I finished, he sat back and tapped his pen against the pad. "Okay," he said. "First things first. You need to get copies of everything. All financial records, all statements, all credit card bills. Going back at least 2 years, preferably 3. We need a complete picture of where money has been going." "I can get all of that," I said. "Do it today. Make copies of everything and get it to me. Second, we need to protect your assets. The accounts are joint?" "Most of them. The retirement accounts are in my name, but accumulated during the marriage, so they're community property. The house is in both names." We have a joint checking and savings. Here's what we're going to do, David said. We're going to remove exactly half of the liquid funds from the joint accounts and put them in a new account in your name only. We'll notify her attorney that we've done this to protect the assets during the proceedings. It's standard practice and perfectly legal. David leaned forward. Thomas, I'm going to be straight with you. Based on what you've told me, I think Margaret has been planning this for at least a year, possibly longer. The unusual expenses, the cash withdrawals, the detailed asset division, none of that happens overnight. She's been preparing. Preparing for what? I asked. She's going to get half anyway. We're in a community property state. Maybe she's been preparing for something else, David said. Maybe there's more to this story. We need to find out what. How? We hire an investigator, someone who can look into what Margaret has been doing for the past year or two, where she's been going, who she's been seeing, what she's been spending money on. I felt sick. You think she's having an affair? I don't know, David said honestly. But the pattern of behavior, unexplained expenses, cash withdrawals, sudden decision to divorce right when you're most vulnerable, it fits. And if there is someone else, that could impact the case. Do it, I said. Hire someone. Find out everything. I spent the rest of the day at home, going through files, making copies, organizing documents. Margaret came home around 6 in the evening. She went straight to the guest room without saying a word to me. I heard the door close. Lock. We were strangers living in the same house. The next morning I went to the bank, opened a new account in my name only. Our joint checking had $43,600 in it. Our joint savings had $87,200. I transferred half of each, $21,800 and $43,600, into my new account. Then I called David and told him what I'd done. Good, he said. I'll notify her attorney today. Also, I've hired an investigator, Frank Morrison. He's excellent, discreet. He'll be reaching out to you for some information about Margaret's routines and habits. Frank called that afternoon. We talked for an hour. I told him everything I knew about Margaret's schedule, her friends, her usual activities. He asked about the unusual charges I'd found on the credit card statements. I sent him copies of everything. Give me 2 weeks, Frank said. I'll find out what she's been up to. The next week was a blur. I met with my surgeon to go over the procedure. I did pre-op testing, blood work, EKG, chest x-ray. I met with an oncologist to discuss the chemotherapy plan for after I recovered from surgery. Everything felt surreal. Margaret and I still weren't speaking. She'd noticed the money transfer. I'd gotten a furious text from her attorney demanding to know why I'd stolen marital funds. David had responded with a calm explanation that we'd simply protected the assets according to standard procedure. On May 21st, the day before my surgery, all 3 of my children flew in. Jennifer from Seattle, Michael from Austin, Rebecca from Denver. They didn't know about the divorce yet. As far as they knew, they were coming to support their father through cancer surgery. We had dinner that night at the house. Margaret made lasagna. She was performing for the kids, I realized, playing the devoted wife. I watched her smile and laugh and tell stories, and I marveled at how good she was at pretending, how easily she lied. After dinner, Jennifer pulled me aside. Dad, are you and Mom okay? She asked quietly. There's a weird energy between you two. I almost told her then, but I couldn't. Not before surgery. They needed to focus on the medical situation, not a family drama. We're fine, I lied, just stressed about tomorrow. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the surgery, about the cancer, about the possibility that I might not wake up. And if I didn't wake up, Margaret would get everything, the house, the retirement funds, all of it. She'd be a grieving widow who'd collect everything I'd worked for my entire life, and no one would ever know that she'd been planning to leave me. The surgery was on May 22nd at 6:30 in the morning. Michael drove me to the hospital. Margaret came too, riding in the back seat in silence. Jennifer and Rebecca met us there. The pre-op area was cold and sterile. I changed into a hospital gown, answered questions from nurses and anesthesiologists, signed more forms. My children stood around my bed, trying to be encouraging. Margaret stood in the corner, arms crossed, face unreadable. Dr. Morrison came in to review everything one more time. The procedure would take approximately 4 to 5 hours. They'd removed the tumor and affected tissue, possibly some of my colon, maybe nearby lymph nodes. They wouldn't know exactly what they'd need to take until they got in there. "You're in good hands," Dr. Morrison said, squeezing my shoulder. "I'll see you on the other side." They wheeled me toward the operating room. My children walked alongside the gurney, holding my hands. Margaret followed a few steps behind. At the doors to the OR, they had to stop. Jennifer kissed my forehead. Michael gripped my hand tight. Rebecca was crying. "I love you all," I said. "So much." "We love you too, Dad," Jennifer said. "We'll be right here when you wake up." I looked past them at Margaret. Our eyes met for just a second. I tried to read her expression. I couldn't tell. Then they pushed me through the doors and everything went white. I woke up to pain, immediate, intense, radiating from my abdomen. Someone was saying my name, a nurse. She was telling me the surgery was over, that it had gone well, that Dr. Morrison would be in to talk to me soon. Dr. Morrison appeared. He looked tired, but satisfied. "The surgery went very well, Thomas," he said. "We got the tumor. We removed about 40 centimeters of your colon and 12 lymph nodes. We'll send everything to pathology, but visually it looks like we got clean margins. It's very good news." He explained the recovery process. I'd be in the hospital for about a week, pain management, watching for complications, gradually starting to eat again, then a few weeks of recovery at home before starting chemotherapy. "Your family's in the waiting room," Dr. Morrison said. "They've been very anxious. I'll send them back in a little while." When I finally surfaced again, I was in a regular hospital room and my children were there. They were relieved, happy. The surgery had gone well. "Where's your mother?" I asked. The kids exchanged glances. "She left about an hour ago," Michael said. "Said she wasn't feeling well, needed to go home." Of course she did. I spent 5 days in the hospital. My children rotated visiting shifts. Margaret came once, stayed for 20 minutes, barely spoke to me. I watched her pretend to care, and I felt nothing. On the third day, while Michael and Rebecca had gone to get coffee, my phone buzzed. Text from Frank Morrison, the investigator. "Need to talk. Important. Can you call?" I stepped carefully out of bed and went into the bathroom for privacy. Called Frank. "Thomas," he answered. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been cut open," I said. "What did you find?" "A lot," Frank said, "and none of it is good. Can we meet tomorrow? I'd rather show you everything in person. I'm in the hospital until Friday. Can you come here?" "Yes. Tomorrow afternoon work?" "Make it 2 o'clock. Frank showed up exactly at 2 o'clock on May the 27th. He had a thick folder under his arm. "Before we start," Frank said, "I want to make sure you're up for this. You just had major surgery. This information is going to be upsetting." "Just tell me," I said. "I need to know." Frank opened the folder, pulled out a stack of photographs, set them on my lap table where I could see them. The first photo was Margaret, sitting at an outdoor cafe with a man I didn't recognize. She was smiling, laughing. The man was leaning in close, his hand on her arm. "Who is that?" I asked. "His name is Richard Hastings," Frank said. "He's 56 years old, divorced, owns a small investment firm, makes decent money, about $190,000 a year. He and Margaret met at a book club in January of 2023. January of 2023. 16 months ago. Right when those unusual charges had started appearing on our credit card. Frank showed me more photos, Margaret and Richard at restaurants, at hotels, entering together, leaving together hours later, at his apartment, at parks, at a wine bar, dozens of photos spanning more than a year. They've been seeing each other approximately 3 to 4 times per week, Frank said. Sometimes for lunch, sometimes for afternoon meetings. She tells you she's at book club, or the gym, or running errands. She's with him. I stared at the photos. My wife of 43 years, with another man. "The cash withdrawals," I said. "She's been giving him money," Frank confirmed. "Richard's business hasn't been doing great. He's had some financial problems. Margaret has been helping him out. I tracked down some of the cash. She's been depositing it into his accounts. About $12,000 last year alone. $12,000. Money we'd saved, money I'd earned, money she'd been handing over to her lover." "There's more," Frank said. He pulled out bank statements. Margaret opened a separate bank account in her name only in February of 2023. She's been diverting money into it. Small amounts, $200 here, $500 there. Nothing dramatic enough to be noticed in our overall finances. But it adds up. He showed me the statements. Margaret had accumulated $26,400 in this secret account. How did she do it? I asked. She's been cashing checks, Frank explained. You know how you sometimes get checks as gifts or refunds? Instead of depositing them into your joint account, she's been depositing them into her secret account. Also, she's been underreporting some of your income. When you were still working, you'd occasionally get bonuses or reimbursements. She'd tell you one amount, but the actual amount was higher. She'd skim the difference. I felt sick. This wasn't just an affair. This was calculated financial fraud. There's more, Frank said again. Margaret met with a divorce attorney for the first time in September of 2023. 8 months before she filed. She's been planning this for a long time, Thomas. Getting legal advice, documenting assets, building her case. September of 2023. That was 4 months before I'd even announced my retirement. Did she know? I asked. About the cancer? Did she know before the diagnosis? Frank shook his head. I don't think so. The timing of her filing suggests she was planning to do it anyway, probably over the summer. Your diagnosis just happened to occur right before she was ready to pull the trigger. What do we do with all this? I asked. We give it to David, Frank said. All of this is evidence. The affair, the secret account, the financial manipulation, the long-term planning. It shows that Margaret has not been acting in good faith. Will it matter? I asked. For the divorce? In terms of asset division, probably not much, Frank admitted. You're in a community property state. She's entitled to half regardless of whether she's been cheating. But it might impact spousal support, and it will definitely impact how the judge views her credibility. Frank gathered up the photos and documents. There's one more thing. Richard Hastings. I did some digging into him. He's not just having financial problems. He's broke, seriously broke. His business is failing. He's behind on his rent. His car got repossessed last month, and Margaret's been helping him financially. You think she's planning to give him money from the divorce settlement? I'd bet on it, Frank said. She gets her settlement from you. She gives a chunk of it to Richard to bail him out. After Frank left, I lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling. My wife had been living a double life for more than a year, cheating on me, stealing from me, planning to leave me, all while I'd been working, retiring, dreaming about our future together. I was released from the hospital on May 31st. Jennifer and Michael took me home. On June 3rd, I met with David at his office, brought all the information Frank had given me, spread it out on the conference table. David went through everything methodically. His expression got darker as he reviewed each piece of evidence. This is good, he finally said. This is really good. Not good for you emotionally, obviously, but good for the case. How do we use it? I asked. Carefully, David said. First, we're going to amend your response to her petition. We're going to point out several discrepancies in her asset valuation. She's undervalued some things, overvalued others, and completely failed to mention the $26,000 in her secret account. We're going to argue that she's been acting in bad faith throughout the marriage. What about spousal support? That's where this really helps us, David said. She's asking for $4,000 a month for 10 years. That's $480,000 total. But she's been having an affair. She's been stealing marital funds. She's been deliberately planning this divorce while pretending everything was fine. All of that goes to her credibility and her need for support. David filed our amended response on June 5th. Margaret's attorney responded with outrage, claiming we were making baseless and defamatory accusations. David responded with copies of the photos, copies of the bank statements, copies of Margaret's meetings with her divorce attorney going back to September of 2023. Suddenly, Margaret's attorney went quiet. On June 18th, we received a request for a settlement conference. Margaret wanted to talk. She wanted to negotiate. The settlement conference was scheduled for June 25th at David's office. I arrived early. David had coached me. Stay calm. Let him do most of the talking. Don't engage emotionally with Margaret. Margaret arrived with her attorney, Jonathan Reeves. I'd known Jonathan for years. He looked distinctly uncomfortable. Margaret wouldn't look at me. She sat across the conference table, hands folded, eyes down. "Let's get started," David said. "I think we all know why we're here. Mr. Reeves, your client filed for divorce asking for half of all marital assets plus spousal support of $4,000 per month for 10 years. We've presented evidence that your client has been engaging in an extramarital affair, has been diverting marital funds, and has been planning this divorce for at least 8 months. Those facts change the landscape considerably." Jonathan cleared his throat. "My client acknowledges that there have been complications. However, she maintains her right to fair compensation for 43 years of marriage in which she sacrificed her own career to support Mr. Crawford's professional advancement." "Fair compensation," David repeated. "Let's talk about that. Your client has a secret bank account with $26,400 in it, funds that came from the marital estate. Your client has been giving marital funds to her paramour. Your client deliberately undervalued assets in her initial filing. How is any of that fair?" "My client is willing to be reasonable," Jonathan said. "She's willing to reduce her spousal support request and to compromise on the asset division. Her standard of living has been supported entirely by my client's hard work for 4 decades, David said sharply. She wants to maintain that standard while shacking up with her boyfriend who's broke and counting on her divorce settlement to bail him out." "I don't think so." Margaret flinched, still didn't look up. "Here's what we're willing to offer," David continued. "Mrs. Crawford gets 42% of the marital assets instead of 50%. She forfeits the secret account to Mr. Crawford as compensation for her deception. No spousal support. She keeps her car and her personal belongings. Mr. Crawford keeps the house." "That's not even close to reasonable," Jonathan said. "Neither was asking for a divorce the day after a cancer diagnosis," David shot back. The negotiation went on for 3 hours. Margaret finally spoke directly to me only once. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'm sorry about the timing. I'm sorry about everything. But I can't stay in this marriage, Thomas. I haven't been happy for a long time." I looked at her, really looked at her. "You could have talked to me," I said. "At any point over the past year, over the past decade. You could have said you weren't happy. We could have tried counseling. We could have worked on it. Instead, you had an affair. You stole from me. You planned to leave me. And then you did it while I was facing cancer. So don't tell me you're sorry. You're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She looked away. We didn't reach an agreement that day. Over the next month, while I was starting chemotherapy, the negotiations continued. The side effects were brutal. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss. I'd lost 32 pounds. I looked like a skeleton. But I was alive, and I was fighting. By late July, we'd reached a tentative agreement. Margaret would receive 45% of the marital assets. The house would be sold and the proceeds split according to the same percentage. No spousal support. The secret account would go to me. Margaret would pay her own attorney fees. Margaret would get just over $1.05 million. I'd get just under $1.3 million, plus the $26,400 from the secret account. It wasn't perfect. I'd still lost a chunk of my retirement, but it was better than what she'd initially demanded, and it meant no ongoing support payments. I signed the agreement on August 2nd, 2024. Margaret signed the same day. The divorce would be final in 6 months. My children finally learned about the divorce in mid-August. I called all 3 of them separately, Jennifer first. "What?" she said when I told her. "Mom asked you for a divorce? When?" "The day after the diagnosis," I said, May 8th. Silence. Then, "Are you kidding me right now?" I wish I was. I told her about the affair, the secret account, the planning. Jennifer started crying. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she said. The conversations with Michael and Rebecca went similarly. Shock, disbelief, anger at their mother. They all called Margaret afterward. Relationships were damaged. Jennifer stopped speaking to Margaret entirely. The house sold in October for $575,000. I moved to a smaller condo. The divorce was finalized on February 2nd, 2025, 9 months after Margaret had asked for it. I finished chemotherapy in late January. My oncologist was cautiously optimistic. Scans showed no evidence of remaining cancer. My tumor markers were good. I'd made it. Against all odds, I'd survived the cancer and the divorce. In March, Frank called me with news. Richard Hastings filed for bankruptcy last week, Frank said. His business completely collapsed, and get this, Margaret is still with him. They're living together in a rental apartment. She's supporting him on her divorce settlement. Good for them, I said. I meant it. I didn't care anymore. There's more, Frank said. Some of my contacts tell me Richard's been seeing other women, multiple women, while he's living with Margaret. I laughed. Couldn't help it. So she left me after 43 years for a guy who's cheating on her with multiple women and living off her money? Looks like it, Frank said. Karma, I said. April brought better news. My 3-month post-treatment scans came back clean. No cancer. I was in remission. I called my children to tell them. They were thrilled, relieved. I spent my 69th birthday in June by myself. Quiet day. I made myself a nice dinner, sat on my condo balcony watching the sunset, thought about the past year. I'd lost a lot. My marriage, a chunk of my retirement savings, my health had taken a beating. My relationship with my children had been complicated by their mother's actions. But I'd gained something too: freedom, clarity, self-respect. I knew who I was. I knew what I'd done. I'd been a good husband, a good father, a good provider. Margaret's betrayal didn't change that. In July, I started dating. Nothing serious, just coffee meetings through a senior dating app. One woman, Linda, was particularly kind. She was a retired teacher, 65 years old, widow of 10 years. We started seeing each other regularly. Nothing rushed, just companionship. It was nice, easy, comfortable in a way my marriage never had been. By September, 15 months after my diagnosis, 14 months after Margaret had asked for a divorce, I was living a completely different life. New home, new relationship, new perspective, cancer-free, divorced, independent. I ran into Margaret once in October at a grocery store. She was with Richard. He looked haggard, worn, older than his 57 years. "Thomas," Margaret said. "Margaret," I replied. We stood there for an awkward moment. "You look well," Margaret said. I'm glad you're healthy. The kids told me you're dating someone. That's good. I hope you're happy." I looked at her. She looked older too, tired. I tried to feel something, anger, resentment, even pity, but there was nothing. "I am happy," I said. "I hope you are too." She glanced at Richard. "I'm trying to be." That was all we said. I moved past them with my cart, continued my shopping, drove home to my condo, and I realized something. I'd won, not by destroying Margaret or getting revenge, but by surviving, by rebuilding, by refusing to let her betrayal define me. She'd tried to take everything: my health, my money, my dignity, my future. And she'd failed, because I was still here, still standing, still living. She was stuck in a failing relationship with a broke cheater who dragged her down to his level. She'd given up a 43-year marriage, alienated her children, tarnished her reputation for Richard Hastings. That was her choice, her consequence, her life now. Mine was something different, something better. I had my health back. I had my children's love and respect. I had my integrity. I had a new relationship that actually felt like a partnership. I had peace. The divorce cost me money. The cancer cost me physical strength. But I'd survived both. And in surviving, I'd discovered something I hadn't known before. I was stronger than I thought, more resilient, more capable of rebuilding. I'd spent 43 years with a woman who pretended to love me while planning her exit, who took my sacrifice for granted, who betrayed me at my most vulnerable moment, and I'd come out the other side. That's not nothing. That's everything. So if you're listening to this story and you're going through something similar, betrayal, illness, divorce, loss, I want you to know something. You can survive it, you can rebuild, you can find happiness again. It won't be easy. It won't be quick, but it's possible. Don't let someone else's betrayal define you. Don't let their choices diminish your worth. Don't let their lies rewrite your truth. You are stronger than you know. You are more valuable than they deserve. And you will survive this. I'm living proof. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helped you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what you thought about this story. And if you feel moved to support the channel, a super thanks would mean the world to me. Remember, karma is real, justice exists, and the best revenge is living well. Take care of yourselves out there, and never ever let anyone make you feel like you're not enough, because you are, you always were, and you always will be.